How can one be angry and not sin, as Paul instructs in Ephesians 4:26? This is a question every Christian must carefully consider if we want to live lives that are both passionate for truth and yet marked by the gentleness and holiness of Christ. The practicality of this passage becomes clear the moment we take a close look. Beginning in Ephesians 4:17, Paul urges believers to put away the corrupt practices of the old man. He warns us to avoid behaviors like vanity, greed, deceit, and lust, characteristics that define a life apart from God. Instead, Paul calls us to put on the new man, one created according to God in true righteousness and holiness. And right in the midst of these strong exhortations, Paul gives a surprising instruction. Be ye angry and sin not, let not the sun go down upon your wrath, Ephesians 4:26. At first glance, it seems almost contradictory. Isn't anger something we are supposed to avoid altogether? The Bible repeatedly portrays anger as destructive when left unchecked. Look at Cain. His anger led him to murder his brother Abel. Naaman's rage nearly kept him from being healed of leprosy. Balaam's uncontrolled temper led to a rebuke from an unlikely source: his donkey. King Ahab's anger opened the door for Jezebel's wickedness against Naboth. Herod's wrath, stoked by fear and pride, led to the horrific slaughter of innocent children in Bethlehem. Clearly, when anger is unchecked, it leads to disastrous outcomes. Paul warns in Colossians to put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication. Solomon also observed, "He that is hasty of spirit exalteth folly." And Jesus warns that whoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the judgment. However, the Bible also speaks of a righteous form of anger. Jesus, the perfect Lamb of God, experienced anger. In Mark, Jesus looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts. His anger was pure, rooted in compassion for the suffering and frustration with the stubbornness of human hearts. God himself is described as displaying wrath toward sin in passages like Numbers, Deuteronomy, and Isaiah. Yet God's anger is always holy, just, and measured. Thus, anger itself is not inherently sinful. It becomes sinful when it becomes unrighteous, when it is driven by selfishness, pride, or a thirst for revenge. When Paul says, "Be ye angry and sin not," he is acknowledging the reality of anger but setting clear boundaries around it. Paul gives important practical guidelines. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath, Ephesians 4:26b. Be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger resteth in the bosom of fools, Ecclesiastes 7:9. Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, James 1:19. These verses urge us to control our anger, resolve it quickly, and not allow it to ferment into bitterness or hatred. Anger must be carefully handled. Like fire, it can either be a powerful servant or a devastating master. At its best, anger can be a force for good, what we might call righteous indignation. This is the kind of anger that fuels reformers, prophets, and Christians who stand boldly against evil. It is the anger that grieves over injustice, false teaching, and moral decay. It is anger that pushes us to act when silence would be cowardly. Controlled anger is the opposite of apathy. Too many in our world, and even in the church, are passive when evil runs rampant. Too many are silent while the unborn are slaughtered, while truth is mocked, and while our young people are led astray by deceit. Righteous anger should stir us to speak truth, defend the innocent, and confront sin, but it must always be governed by love, humility, and wisdom. Unchecked anger, however, is a deadly poison. It clouds judgment. It fuels bitterness. It destroys relationships. Charles Caleb Colton said it well. The intoxication of anger, like that of the grape, shows us to others, but hides us from ourselves. When anger blinds us to our own faults and leads us to lash out irrationally, it dishonors Christ. The solution lies in self-mastery. Jesus exemplified perfect emotional control. In Mark chapter 3, verse 5, his anger was real but righteous, aimed at sin, not sinners. God's anger too is holy, focused on justice and restoration. To master anger, Christians must be slow to anger, as written in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 29, seek quick resolution of conflicts, as advised in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. Focus anger on injustice, not on personal slights, as stated in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, and let love, wisdom, and grace control our responses, as taught in Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 to 15. Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount taught, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. Meekness is not weakness, it is strength under control. Aristotle described meekness as the balanced virtue between excessive anger and a complete lack of anger. This is the Christian calling. Not to be passive doormats, not to be hot-headed aggressors, but to possess a steady, resilient strength that knows when to be firm, when to forgive, when to act, and when to wait. Our goal is not to stamp out anger entirely. That would rob us of a powerful tool God gave us for good. Our goal is to harness anger rightly, to let it burn for justice and mercy without consuming our love, peace, or integrity. When we do this, when we are angry yet sin not, we bear powerful witness to the world. We show that the Spirit of Christ truly lives within us, transforming even our strongest emotions into instruments of His righteousness. So let us be slow to anger, quick to forgive, passionate for justice, and always ruled by the love of Christ. Let our anger be a holy fire, a fire that lights the darkness without ever destroying the vessels that carry it.